Here we go. We are back in action, folks. And like they usually say, strength usually comes in numbers. And in our case, we got a good friend returning back to the show, Colby. Well, there you go, man. Where you been? It's been a
Well,
minute.
yeah, it has been a while. It's just been tough with my schedule, and as we've talked about, going through life changes and stuff. But it's been good. I'm happy to get to be back to knock this out this morning, on a Thursday morning.
I know, right? Thursday
About our
morning.
changing schedules.
I know. I'm watching like Get Up. I'm about to throw on the whatever Rich Eisen's going to be talking about here soon, probably. It's a good time and everything, but it's also a different feeling. The sun's up and everything. Sun's up and early, and yeah, I was about to say we're bright and early. It's a different feeling for sure, man. But it's also awesome just to have you back on here, and yeah, we get to go into a little bit more of the we're going to go actually things a little bit different here, folks. We're going to be going into the NFL, but of course, with Colby being back, we're going to finally be able to touch up and check in on the NBA. Something that you guys probably been thirsting for because my NBA takes aren't the cleanest, of course, but when I have the right person, the right support system, we can achieve great things. Ain't that right, Colby? So
Right.
you said you got tiers ready. I
Yeah.
was thinking for our NFL coverage this week, folks, we are going to go ahead, since not every game matters anymore, we might as well just pick the ones that we all think is important. And I'm going with three games that we all think is important, not including, I feel like, because that this one, the game that's playing tonight, is going to be very important in itself already. So I feel like that one can't be used as a buyout. So we'll talk about tonight's Thursday night game, and then we'll talk about three games each that we both think is going to be pretty fun to watch, or at least something that we got to keep our eyes on as we're getting closer to the playoffs. So all right, tonight's game, we got the Rams going to San Francisco. San Francisco's 3-point favorites, Colby.
Yeah.
That is interesting. I've been talking a lot. So what are your thoughts as you dust off your gears here for the NFL on the Rams and 49ers?
Yeah, so the NFC West has probably been the weirdest division. I mean, it's really been wide open. But Seattle's kind of pulled in front now. They're 8-5. The Rams with that crazy win over Buffalo last week, 7-6, and then the Niners, Arizona, both 6-7. So San Francisco, despite all their injuries and chaos, as bad as this year's gone, they're still alive technically if they win this game, even though it's probably a long shot. The Rams beat them earlier this year. I kind of like San Francisco in this spot. They played really well last week against the terrible Bears. Um, and the Rams coming off that crazy emotional game win over Buffalo. San Francisco has typically dominated this matchup in the regular season, but again, the Rams upset them earlier this year. It's impressive that the Rams are 7-6, is still alive. I think the Rams, both these teams would be dangerous if they can get into the playoffs, but I think they're both going to have an uphill climb, especially if San Francisco wins this game. That's going to make the Rams be alive and well if they can win this, but if not, it's going to be tough for both of them. I like San Francisco in this spot. As bad as they've been at times this year, I still think they're a pretty good team. Purdy coming off a really nice game, and I'd like them to get their bounce back from that loss early in the year. At the end of the day, I think both these teams probably will miss the playoffs. You never know, but Seattle's in a pretty good spot right now, so we'll see. But I like San Francisco in this game tonight.
Oh man, yeah. So from right off the rip, you're starting things off in the interesting light. I'm surprised that the Rams were not favored in this spot. I feel like with all the injuries that the 49ers have been going through, no McCaffrey, all the drama around Debo, uh, Brock Purdy's last year of payment, it's just not panning out well for the 49ers as of recent. And so when I just think about it, I just think maybe this is just finally that breaking point that I've been waiting for as an NFC fan. This is that point, this is that moment that I've been waiting for where they are going to fall off and they're going to show a little struggle. And they are struggling. But like you said, they're still alive. They win this game. It's a must-win game for the 49ers if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah.
Um, because in the Rams case, they now being able to show that they can compete against multiple playoff teams. In the Vikings, they've beaten them, they've beaten the Bills, and now they have a chance to finish off the 49ers. So I'm going to be leaning the Rams, especially when you're giving me plus points. They managed to drop 40 on the Bills and win that game. So, and that's including with the fact that the quarterback on the other side scored all 6 touchdowns. So
Yeah,
I got to give Stafford his credit, man, and everything. Their offense is so, their team is so offensively heavy and so dependent on him. And it's just like we said last year about this Rams team that they're going to go as far as Stafford can take them. And they got Puka Nakua back. He's back and healthy. Cooper Kupp, I think, has been available for a good chunk of the season. So yeah, this Rams offense is just looking once again one of the top offenses in the league. And I think that's just going to be, they're just going to unload it all tonight. It'll be interesting to see, though, how the 49ers, defend the home ground and everything like that. So I'm taking the Rams and the plus 3 points there. All right. So now to our 3 games. All right. We got 3 games to pick from. Colby, who is your first choice of what is your first choice of action here?
so yeah, there's a lot of ugly games this week. It's not a great slate, as you mentioned. Some really good late games, actually. The 4 o'clock slate is the rare Sunday where the 4 o'clock slate is way better than the
Mm-hmm.
early slate. Literally, almost every single good game is at 4 o'clock. Um,
Yeah, I was looking at that just now. It's
I'm not
looking
going to go into
rough.
the Panthers Cowboys, but I do want to shout out Bryce Young for how much better he's been playing. That is since coming back. That is a crazy story. So props to him. Hope it continues. I guess really the only 1 o'clock game that's super significant and interesting is the Colts Broncos. Broncos 3.5 point favorites at home. So the Broncos I know are in the driver's seat for one of those last wild card spots in the AFC. But the Colts are challenging. The Colts basically have to have this game uh, to have any chance of making the playoffs. It's probably a long shot because I believe they're 6-7, and
Mhm.
Denver's 8-5. If I'm correct on that, I'm going to double check that. But so yeah, this is a big game. Anthony Richardson. You never know what you're going to get. The upside is crazy. The downside is also crazy. I'm not a super believer in the Colts, but they're hanging around. Like I said, they're currently they're 6-7. Denver currently has the 7 seed, 8-5. So if Denver wins this game, I mean, that's pretty much a wrap on the AFC wild card. Right? I mean, it's gonna be very hard for Indy or Miami to catch them, um, who are the two 6-7 teams on the outside looking in. If the Colts win, that changes things. They're alive and well. I trust Denver way more in this spot. I trust Bo Nix more than I'm a
Oh,
big Bo Nix guy, but he's been great this year with Sean Payton. I trust him and Sean Payton more than Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. I like Shane Steichen, but I just think the Broncos have been better. They've been really impressive this year. So shout out to them. But I like Denver in this spot. But yeah, this is an interesting game because if the Broncos win, that's pretty much a wrap on who the wild cards are going to be for the most part. Not necessarily because I guess the Broncos, Ravens, Chargers are all 8-5. So if any of them lose this week, that could keep the door open for Miami and Indies. But um, the Ravens are playing Giants, so they're probably not going to lose. Chargers are a tough game, which we might get to later. But so that's a big one. That's really the only 1 o'clock slate game that I'm going to have my eye on, because the rest are pretty rough.
yeah. So I'm looking through this slate and everything. Regarding the Broncos and Colts, I'm also going to be taking the Broncos. It took me a long time actually to get hip to the Broncos train and everything, fighting through all the Sean Payton, Bo Nix bias that I've had. That's why I said whoa. But as of these last couple of weeks, it has been pretty impressive to watch um, how the Broncos really shaped around their team and stuff. I mean, it was mostly the defensive effort that they've been putting forward that's been very impressive for me. Seems that they have rallied behind Pat Surtain and everything, PS2. So I really think it's been impressive what the Broncos have put together. It's very surprising to see them as a playoff team as well. Um, and I guess my game actually is going to pair very well with yours because, as you mentioned, you were talking about the Dolphins. Well, that was the first game, my 1 o'clock game choice. It's going to be Dolphins at Texans. This one, I
I
feel
missed that
like,
one. That's a good one. Yeah, I
yeah,
missed that.
This one I think is going to have just as much impact onto the playoff race as the Broncos game will have. And the Colts are going to be having this strong, strong hope and belief that the Dolphins can pull this off. Because if they beat the Texans, that not only makes that wild card chase a little more interesting, but the AFC South stays wide open for the Colts just in case they do lose that game against Denver. But to the side of these two teams that are going to be playing the game, Dolphins and Texans, uh, I'm going to be taking the I'm going to take the Dolphins here. They just been heating up at the right time, at the
Oh,
right moment. Yeah, I was about to say, I know the Texans are coming off a bye, but I just think Miami, their offense has just been clicking. Maybe it's because Tua finally back in action, back into the system, and has finally got a grip of what's going on, and now they're starting to go. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Dolphins just because I feel like the offense is going to be strong. I feel like the Texans off defense and offense have also been a little inconsistent. So I'm going to take the fun shot here. I'm going to say the Dolphins come in with the upset with 2.5 points. Yeah, I just really like what they're cooking with these last couple of weeks.
yeah,
All right, there's our first games.
agree with you.
Uh,
The Texans have just
Go ahead. Sorry.
it's been so ugly. No, you're good. I was just saying the Texans, it's been such a mess with their O line. They've been disappointing, even though they are still 8-5. Um, so I think I'm surprised. I guess I'm not shocked. I don't think Miami's great, so I'm not shocked the Texans are favored, but I would lean with you taking Miami and the points there.
Yeah, right.
Even though I don't ultimately it up since Tua has been back, I just don't think they're going to have enough time to catch up. But you never know.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the most. I just don't know. Like to be quite fun. Now, this is going to be a fun one to watch. Like because, like I said, both teams have not played up to the standard that was set to them at the beginning of the season. I
The
mean,
Texans are just grateful for their division.
yeah, literally. So they're literally literally the AFC South is just so well, the bottom two teams are really bad, and then the Colts have just been fumbling along the entire season. So yeah, this is just, it's gonna be an interesting watch for sure. That's why this is gonna be probably, like you were mentioning, probably the only 1 o'clock game that's worthy of watching, to be quite honest. Um, do you have any other games in the 1 o'clock schedule before I go ahead and just list off all the ones that we're not even going to touch here? For example, you already said Ravens
Oh,
at
dude.
Giants. We're not going to talk about that. Jets, Jags, that they're both eliminated. Cowboys, Panthers, both eliminated. Well, I think the Panthers aren't mathematically yet, but will be. And they're favored, by the way, folks.
Yeah, shout out to the Panthers being favored over the Cowboys. Who would have ever thought?
Yeah, that's insane. The Chiefs at Browns, we're not going to probably talk about, and Commanders at Saints, and Bengals at Titans. So a bunch of gross games at that 1 o'clock slot, like Colby mentioned, and all the fun ones, yeah, coming in at 4 o'clock. Colby, who do you got next? Game number two.
Yeah, so there's it's maybe the greatest 4 o'clock slate I've ever seen. I mean, there's four great 4 o'clock games. I mean, I'll of course go with the one of the two big ones. My Steelers at the Eagles. Pittsburgh rolling in 10-3. What a year! I did not upset when they put him back in because I was happy with how Fields had played, but it proved to be the right decision. Russ has been great, which has really surprised me. So shout out to him. And Philly has some drama, even though they've won 9 in a row and are pretty much locked in to be at least a 2 seed right now. So this is going to be a super fascinating game. This line is crazy.
Yeah,
Eagles are favored by 5.5, and
way too many points.
part of why it's such a big line. But yeah, for Mike Tomlin, this is exactly where he wants. He loves these underdog spots. The Steelers show up when they're playing. I love Pittsburgh getting the 5.5. I'm obviously fine for this game. For two teams I think are pretty evenly matched. I understand Philly being favored because they're at home, but 5.5 is way too many points.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. 5.5 is just way too many points, man. We've seen the Steelers time and time again come into opponents' places, especially opponents of high records, they usually come up and play very well against. So, road underdog, Steelers on the road, but more importantly, it was like you mentioned, more impressed with what they were able to put together with Russell Wilson, of course. Um, Going off of that, the only thing I really have to say is can the Eagles offense be able to surprise the Pittsburgh defense? That's the main question that comes to my head here. And after seeing and hearing what they've been complaining about all week so far about their pass game and AJ Brown drama and all that, I kind of lean towards the Steelers just because if they have to go and get play simple, it's going to be a Saquon Barkley versus that Steelers front seven. Kind of would take the Steelers front seven in that situation against the Philly run game. Um, yeah, that's probably the main thing. The X factor for the Philadelphia Eagles is still going to probably be Saquon Barkley. So if the Steelers find a way to keep a lid on Saquon, I think the Eagles are going to be in for a little bit more than they can, more than 5 points for sure of a spread. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna agree with you. I like the Steelers in this spotlight as well. Um, and then let's see here. My next pick is going to be, well, this is a big spotlight moment, and it's a fun one for both of us. We're gonna go Bucks at Chargers. I think this one's gonna be a fun one too. We got Baker Mayfield going to LA to take on Herbo, my bad. And well, maybe Herbo doesn't earn his name yet. I don't know. It's been interesting, Colby, watching these Chargers in the new Harbaugh era. Especially, I don't know what to really make of it. It's just they're playing safe, consistent football all the way around, just smash mouth every single week. And then it's just like if Herbert can pop off and have a moment, he does. So I kind of want to take Baker here, to be quite honest, at least Baker in the points. I mean, they're also, what's up with our South divisions this year? Both divisions on both conferences are gross. But
Started out, the Bucks and Falcons both started really strong too, and it was like, are they both going to make the playoffs? And now they're both just kind of limping to the finish line.
yeah, limping with each other. I mean, I was about to say the Falcons got what, lost four straight, and then the Bucks are
Yeah,
finally back in the driver's seat of the division after losing 2 games to the Falcons. That's how much of a lead they had on them.
yeah.
So I kind of want to go with the Bucks here to keep the push going. I know the Chargers are going to probably bring in a strong defensive presence. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try and keep the ball away from Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and that high offense. I mean, Bucky Irving showing up has been great for them as well for the Bucks, but I'm going to take the Bucks here. I think their offense is going to be enough, and the defense will also be able to show up to give them the slight edge here.
This is a go either way game for me. I mean, I would like in the three with Tampa, but I'll go against you and pick the Chargers here just because I do think they are a better, more complete team. I think their defense is really good. And the Harbaugh smash mouth football, Herbert make a couple big throws, take care of the ball. I mean, it's a winning formula. They haven't won a lot of big games, but I do think Tampa has some issues. Obviously, they finally have Mike Evans back, which has opened things up. But I do think the Chargers are just a more complete team with their ability to play deep. They have a better defense. They run the ball super well. Coming off that heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs, I like the Chargers here. I'll take them. I would prefer if it was less than a field goal, but I'm fine with taking the -3. Because I do think the Chargers are a very good team. If they win this one similar to Denver, they win this game, they're pretty much guaranteed to get one of those wild card spots. And they'll be pretty much locked in for the playoffs. Not officially clinched, but I mean, this NFL.com says with a win, they have 96% chance to make it. So they'll be in a good spot with that win. Tampa, it's this Tampa Atlanta thing is going to come down to the end. It sucks that they lost both those Atlanta games because now they have to finish with a better record or otherwise Atlanta gets it. But Atlanta's kind of free falling right now. So we'll see how that plays out. Although the Falcons have a very easy game this week. So
They do. They
pressure's
do.
on.
And we can go out and go ahead and say it because it is part of that double Monday night header. I'm not going to put my Vikings on the list here just because they're playing the Bears. I
Yeah,
expect
they
us to handle business,
should.
and we're at home. So we can go ahead and just gracefully go ahead and cover the Monday night games. It's Bears at Vikings, and the Falcons will be able to play the Raiders, who I have officially stepped away from, Colby, while you were gone.
Oh, have you?
While you were
What did you
gone.
say? They're going to go 11-6 or something? They're two, two
I
and
might have
11.
at least said that they would go match the over. I at least said that. I know that for sure because I have the over-unders list right over there
Yeah, I
and
was looking
everything.
at those
So
unders. We're actually looking like we're going to do pretty well. Um,
your
I mean,
Vikings take has been my favorite
yeah,
take.
we've all had at least one or two really bad misses. Yours are all so you're obviously going to miss the Raiders. Your
Mhm.
other four are all going to come down to like the last few weeks. Your
Yeah.
other four are kind of up in the air. The Tampa one, I'm sure they'll win one more game, so you'll probably hit the Bucks over. The other three, Colts under, Cardinals over, Dolphins over, going to come down to the wire. I had two bad misses with the Vikings under and the Jags over, but my other three are going to all hit: Giants under, Raiders under, Niners under.
Mhm.
Um,
Good
James,
call.
James and Christian. James probably did the best. James has already clinched two. The only one James is probably going to miss is he had the Eagles under, which he's already missed. He's going to probably hit on all the other ones: Texans, Seahawks over, Bengals, Bears under. Christian, his is also most of his are going to come down to these last couple games. He's already missed the Broncos under. He's going to hit the Titans under. Patriots under, Saints under, Rams over are all going to come down to the end. So we did better than last year, though. Looking at the records, we're definitely going to do better than last year. So that's good for us.
Oh yeah. I was about to say, finally back in the positive side of things there, and great rundown there, Colby. Appreciate that
No
because
problem.
I just be telling Christian, I'm like, I'm just trying to find a way to put. I have it on like thumbtacked on the wall, so and I can't really read it from here. All right, one more game, Colby. What do you got? Last game that you want to talk about here before we get into the good stuff that is the NBA.
Well, it's obviously the heavyweight throwdown. There's two other great 4 o'clock games. I won't mention Packers Seahawks in this, but that's a really good one too. But it's the Bills Lions. I mean, possible Super Bowl preview. Bills coming off a heartbreaker. Lions 12-1. The Lions 2.5 point favorites. Lions have looked like the best team in the league for a lot of the year, if not the whole year. I kind of like Buffalo in this spot simply because I think it's a go either way, high scoring game with Detroit's defensive injuries. I think Allen can pop off. And I just like getting points with Buffalo. But this is, I mean, wow, what a game. This is an unbelievable 4 o'clock slate. And I'm normally a 1 o'clock games guy more so because normally the afternoon games are way worse, except for like one.
Hmm.
All the big games are in the afternoon this week. It's weird.
I know they're making you stay up. Like, normally you would like to take a nap during the 4 o'clock games and you would catch them like around the mid third quarter, fourth quarter. No, this time around you got to stay up and at them because all the action's going to be coming in at 4 o'clock. Um, I think this is probably going to be your America's Game of the Week. They're probably going to promote it as such. I'm going to lean. Dude, in this spotlight moment, I kind of want to lean here. I mean, it's very tempting to say Bills, obviously, especially after the heartbreaking loss that they just went through. Actually, I think I am going to take the Bills because you add that into the fact that the Lions defense is still recouping, I guess you can say, recovering. I mean, they're winning games despite the fact that they're all banged up. But I mean, eventually it has to come back and bite you. And when you have an offense like the Bills, I think this is the time where they're going to see that.
Mhm.
Josh Allen is just a different monster than Jordan Love is. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
he's better than Jordan Love. I would agree with that.
uh, yeah, I would hope so. But I'm gonna go with yeah, I'm gonna take the Bills and everything for this one. They're what, 2.5 point favorites or underdogs actually. So yeah, I'll take the Bills and the 2.5 point underdogs. And if the Lions win this one, I mean, and that game against the Vikings would just have to literally go perfect and just keep matching them. And I would just love for just 1 week of slippage from the Lions here. And I think we can get it this week, especially after the Bills, what happened to them in not San Francisco, LA. So
Yeah, the Vikings are right on Detroit's tail. The 1 seed is still alive.
I
Sam,
know.
unbelievable.
Unbelievable year. All right. And then my last game to talk about here before we switch over to the NBA. It's going to have to be that heavyweight showdown that you were mentioning, Colby. The last 4 o'clock game, Patriots at Cardinals. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna go with Packers at Seattle. Obviously, this is probably the game that people want to hear a little bit more about, are probably gonna have their eyes on. It's a fun Sunday night football game. You got the Packers coming back into another game where they're playing against the playoff team. Don't have the best record against winning record teams. So this is probably a big spotlight moment here for the Packers. If they can pull this off, they can actually go ahead, and I feel like this is a stamp it to you game. And it's like, yeah, they're an actual playoff team. You can, shut up all the rumors that you've been hearing about those losses, and they are who they are. However, I'm going to go ahead and take the Seattle Seahawks and double down on my NFC North hatred here back to back times. I am going to go ahead and take them because I feel like the Seattle defense is actually starting to take shape. The Seattle team is starting to feel like they're getting some consistency going, and it's starting to feel like they don't need to rely as much on Geno Smith as necessary. I feel like the mistakes are in the game are going to happen regardless when it comes to Geno. We're going to see a ball or two where we're like, why did he throw that? Or it was rushed. But that's the Geno Smith experience at this time. So, and it's not like you're going to see the same thing on the other side of the ball with the Packers. I'm expecting this to be a low scoring game, but I'm going with Seattle.
I'm actually, and I've been the Packers Jordan Love guy on the show, and I still believe in them, but I'm going to take Seattle too. This is such a weird line. I don't understand how Green Bay, Seattle is an underdog at home in this spot. Getting 2.5 at home is really weird. That's a suspicious line, so maybe I should pick Green Bay. But I don't get that line at all. I definitely will take Seattle getting the points at home. They're a good team. I really like what they've done. Geno's had a pretty good year. Like you said, he has the one or two really questionable throws a game, but for the most part, he's been good. They run the ball pretty well. So I like Seattle a lot. Their coach, Mike McDonald's been a great first year coach. So this is a weird line. I'll take Seattle as well.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. I'm glad you've mentioned Mike McDonald because he started. It was a rough start. Let's be real. It was rough go at and everything. I think it's because they were trying to figure out the offense and just trying to get their bearings down. And the defense, you're switching over from a Pete Carroll system to his system. And yeah, I really do think that the work that he's done is kind of starting to show now, and everything is starting to show why they brought him in. So. Shout out Seattle and very interesting Sunday night football game and all that fun stuff. All right, Colby, you ready to talk some NBA Cup?
Yeah, do NBA Cup. Do you want to do locks first, or want to do that at the end?
Oh, yes, the locks,
You get
yes.
Christians.
Christian, he will go ahead and send them in later and everything. So we'll go ahead and just count them as ours for now, and he'll be picking off of what we got.
Okay, we can go through it quick then, so we can do some NBA before you got to leave.
Yeah.
Um, all right, you want to go first or me too?
Go ahead. You can go first.
There's a lot of numbers I really like this week, but I mean, of course, I have to go with my bias and take Steelers plus 5.5 first. I mean, that's just too many points. Give me a break.
All right, Steelers 5.5. Let me write these down real quick. You're at 18-18 on the year, by the way.
Oh yeah, I do not have the update record. 18 and 18, really?
Yes, 18-18. I've been keeping record, don't worry. I got you
Which
at 18-18, and I think Christian's at 20 and I'm at 21 because I still have that half game on him. No, we're both at 21. So yeah, me and Christian are at 20. So I'm at 21, 14 and 1. He's at 21 and 15. And that's because remember, folks, we took 2 weeks off. So that's why it's still equaled up to a couple weeks
2014.
back.
All right. Yeah.
So, all right, my first lock, gonna go ahead. I think this is a safe pick here. I'm gonna swallow the points. Give me the Bengals over the Titans for -4.5.
It's a very good pick. Yeah, some of these games earlier are gross, but I like the numbers. You get back to back, right?
Yes, I'll take back to back here. And then after that, I'm gonna go Commanders. Take like you just said, we're gonna go with the 1 o'clock slot. Just hammer all those down real quick because those are good lines. I'm not gonna lie.
That was That was gonna be on my list. Getting Spencer Rattler or Jake Hayner, Commanders off a bye. That's a disgusting game for the Saints. All
Yes.
right, then I'll go with the other 1 o'clock line I liked. I'm gonna go. I hate to pick this team, but I mean it's too much of a good of a spot here. I'm gonna go Jets -3.5 over
Ooh.
Jacksonville. I mean, Mac Jones is just so bad. Like you only get so many chances to bet against Mac Jones. These teams have the same record because the Jets somehow keep blowing games. They're only 3-10, but they are a much better team than the Jags, I think, talent wise. So I'll take the Jets here. And then my last pick, I'll go back to Seattle, give them the 2.5. That's just, I don't understand how they're a home dog. So I'll take Seattle +2.5 over Green Bay.
Okay. And I'm gonna take for my last one, I'll take Atlanta and 3.5 over the Raiders.
All right, -3.5. That's a Desmond Ritter revenge game, by the way. So I
Oh
got to
no.
watch out.
Oh
Desmond
no.
Ritter might carve up the Falcons. We'll see. All right, there we go. That was good. Hopefully that'll get me over 500 for the year.
There you go. Hey, we only got a couple of weeks left. So yeah, you got to keep at it and keep at them and keep strong. All right, we don't really actually have to talk about the NBA Cup. I know that those were the games that were played last night as
Yeah,
Trey
the
Young.
final, the Vegas tourney set, Hawks, Bucks, Rockets, Thunder.
Mm,
Gonna be interesting.
hang on, you said it was Hawks, Bucks, Rockets, Thunder.
Yeah, that's the final four.
Ew. Imagine that. And who would have thought? Who would have thought? But good for the Bucks, honestly, finally getting their footing down. It's gonna be
Yeah,
interesting to see what you have to say about these teams on their on this upcoming tiers list that you got cooking up here.
it's gonna be good.
All right, Colby, go ahead and take us away. And on Zoom 2, folks, go ahead. Already starting back on Zoom 2. So Colby, take us away for these NBA tiers.
Yeah, still going strong on the Zoom. Okay, so this is the first one we've done since this NBA season has started. We're almost to Christmas, so a month and change into the season, about a quarter of the way through almost. A lot of major storylines, a lot of surprises, both good and bad. Um, we'll get to it. Obviously, our teams are not sitting in this pretty spot they were last year.
Mm-mm.
So we'll be sure to talk about them. So we can kind of talk about some teams more as we go. But here we go. The bottom row already waving the flag. That's, of course, another talking about Cooper flag, who everyone's tanking for.
Nice.
Big group down here. We've got the Raptors, Wizards, Jazz, Hornets, and Pelicans. I thought about putting the Pelicans, Wizards, and Jazz in their own tier at the bottom, but I didn't want to have a tier just for Toronto and Charlotte. Both those teams are pretty bad. The Wizards are atrocious, even though they somehow beat the Nuggets. They're a horrible 3-win team, by far the worst team in the league. The Pelicans, what a bummer. They were thinking playoffs. They made the playoffs last year, and literally everyone got hurt. Their whole team has been injured. The Zion thing, he's injured again. It's probably cooked. So what a just a bummer and a disaster New Orleans is. DeJounte Murray got hurt his first game. He's back now, but they really lost that DeJounte Murray trade. We'll get to that in a
Mhm.
little bit later. Charlotte, they have two awesome players. LaMelo and Brandon Miller are both excellent. They've had really good years, but LaMelo's hurt again after a great start to the year. We'll see when he gets back. The rest of this roster is pretty barren. I mean, Trey Mann, I like him. Uh, and I think their rookie is interesting. Tijan Salon, he's had some moments, but he's still very raw. So the future could be bright in Charlotte, but they need a lot more. They're a bad team right now. Utah, they've been in full-blown tank mode. They lost Taylor Hendricks to a freak injury. I imagine Lowry Markkinen will get shut down at some point, and they'll be trying to trade pieces because the rest of this team is just awful. The Wizards, I mean, I like some of their young players as bad as they are. I do like Saar, the second pick. He's a bit of a work in progress offensively, but I really like his shot blocking, what he can offer defensively. I don't think he's going to be a bust. And I like Koulibaly as well. And Toronto is just like the weirdest team ever. I don't know what, I mean, the Emmanuel Quickly contract is ridiculous. Scotty Barnes is out for a few weeks, which is a bummer. Grady Dick's had a great year. He's really breaking out, so that's been cool for them.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's just kind of a lot of weird random role guys, a lot of wings on this team. So that's the bottom row of these five. Already thinking about Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, the top draft prospects.
Oh, wow, look at you listing off names not named Cooper Flag. Okay.
Top, the
Um,
two kids, they're both also really good.
Obviously, it is a bummer to see the Pelicans be where they're at right now. I seen early in the year. I think it was the when Zion posted that tattoo, that back tattoo and stuff. People started ripping him online and stuff, and that's when the attention started turning to him again. So yeah, very disappointed in the Pelicans and just that whole experiment with Zion. Do they trade him and all that? Who would take Zion and take on that risk? That's where I start going to when you start thinking of that conversation is who would take that risk and on Zion. And I don't know many teams that would, but another team that I would like to talk about though, besides the Raptors, because they actually also are one of those weird teams that beaten the Wolves. And I feel like we're going to talk about more of the Wolves' flaws later. But so we're going to go ahead and go lean in the Hornets here. Yeah, I was just as surprised that the Hornets were popping off as well as they did at the beginning of the season. I mean, Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball were just so electrifying. That was very fun to watch. And then, of course, LaMelo gets hurt again, and we're just going through the same ins and outs of the seasons before. So if I were to say if there's one team that I would like to see Cooper flag on, it would probably be that one. I would probably like to see them try one more time. I know that means Charlotte's getting what, three number one picks or three top three picks to
Yeah.
work together. But hey, sometimes that's what you got to do to be successful. And it finally works out in their way. The lottery would be even crazier.
No,
So,
I agree. I think out of those five, that Charlotte would be the most fun team for Cooper Flag, and he fits, I think, really well with Brandon Miller and LaMelo because he's kind of like this power forward type. He's a unique player. I think he's gonna be very good. So
mhm.
I would agree with that. All right, ready? Keep going. Here
Yes,
we go.
sir.
Next group, good advertising. Bulls, Pistons, Nets, Trailblazers. The Trailblazers could almost be in the bottom group, but they're better than all these teams. In the Nets, Bulls, and Blazers case, they're not good teams, but they're competitive. They've won a decent amount of games already, and they're just advertising some of their rotation pieces to who are playing well to try to entice a contender to trade for them and to get some value for their rebuild. Zach LaVine, he's having a good year. I still don't know if anyone will take on his contract. Vucevic is having a good year. Same situation. Um, so Chicago's been frisky. I like Kobe White. Giddy, I think, has played pretty well for them. And my guy Buzelis from the draft, he's finally gotten in the rotation these last few weeks. He's had one really good game, couple nice performances off the bench, but he's getting real minutes now. So excited to see what he can become. And the Pistons, it's just good advertising for their future. They actually have a roster that makes sense. Their new coach, Bickerstaff, is actually letting Jaden Ivey be the point guard, unlike Monty Williams last year. And Ivey's been brilliant. Cade Cunningham's been really great. So it's happy for the Pistons to see them being frisky, competitive, because they do have so much young talent and so many interesting guys. I don't know if Asar Thompson. I think he's been out for the start of the year. He's an interesting piece as well. Brooklyn has actually been really competitive. I mean, Chicago, Brooklyn, Detroit are all going to probably be in that play-in mix for most of the year, at least unless they have a fire sale. I mean, Brooklyn has about four guys I would love to have on the Nuggets. It's just
Yeah.
rotation. They're a team full of role players, but they're well coached. Jordy Fernandez done a great job. The Cams have both been really good. Cam Thomas, and Cam Johnson.
Hey.
So they have a ton of interesting players that a lot of contenders I'm sure would love to have, and Brooklyn could add to their draft pick, their horde of draft picks they've been collecting. So shout out to Brooklyn. They've been making smart decisions, and they'll probably be able to get some value for some of these guys if they do trade them. They're also in the last year of the Ben Simmons deal, and he's actually been playing. He hasn't been great, but he's at least been out there. And Portland also has a ton of guys, Jeremy Grant, Simons, Robert Williams, who I think could be valuable to some contenders that they'll probably try to move. Scoot has still not been great. He's improved a little bit, but it's still not what we wanted to see. So that's not good for them. Shaden Sharp's been awesome. I really like him. Like Avdia, Kamari, some of their young pieces. Klingon has been. I like Klingon when he's out there. He doesn't do much for you on offense, but he's a great rim protector, rebounder. So I think Portland, all these teams are in a pretty good spot going forward. Chicago definitely in the worst spot. But the other three, I think, are in a good spot, especially Portland and Detroit with their young talent. So they're frisky. They're not horrible, but they're not good teams either.
Yeah, shout out to the Detroit to finally separate themselves from the
Yes.
Wizards. I mean, goodness.
They have so much more talent than the Wizards.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like last season, it was probably more of a coaching side and everything. And it's good to see JB Bickerstaff going from the Cavs to this group and everything and still being successful. Well, not as successful, but in the Detroit span of things, they're being successful. It's a good first step. It's good to see them being back in action. And the other half of this for me personally is I have seen the rumors that the Nets might be already looking to unload Cam Johnson, I think it was. I think one of the Cams are looking to be on the move. As you said, they're trying to probably just keep building up on those draft picks and everything. And the Blazers, man, I think they managed to beat my Timberwolves 2 times already this season. So they
They're
have some,
frisky.
yeah, they are a frisky team. Definitely, I slept on them both times. I assumed that we would beat them both times, and they actually, yeah, they are a team that you gotta at least respect a little bit more this season. And Buzelis, what a name. Haven't heard that name in a minute since you brought him up. So there we go.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. Um, all right, next tier. I almost put these teams lower, but I think they get some credit for past success. Thank God we're in the East. Pacers and Sixers. It's been an unmitigated disaster
Yikes.
for teams that had expectations to compete. Luckily, they're in the East, so they have plenty of time to get their act together, and they can still be in the playoffs. I mean, Indiana right now is 10-15. Philly is 7-15. The Embiid drama with the I mean, it's just been crazy with the snitch in the locker room and him not being healthy. He's just now playing. Paul George has missed a bunch of games. The rookie Jared McCain's awesome. Max is good, but there's bad vibes in the locker room. Paul George and Embiid just missing tons of games. The Embiid thing has just been such a disaster to start the year. But luckily they're in the East, so they'll have time to get it together. Indiana is even more weird because they're fully healthy. They have a deep team. Matherin's back, and their big problem is Tyrese Halliburton has just not been the same guy he was last year. He's having a rough year. So I don't know what's going on with him, but they were in the conference finals last year. Tough to see them getting back to that at this point, but I ultimately put them up here due to their past success because I do think both these teams will still get it together enough to at least make the top 10 and be in the play-in and have a chance to be in the Eastern playoffs because at the end of the day, they're both significantly more talented than those three Eastern teams below them. So I think both these teams probably get in the playoffs still, as bad as they've been, but you never know. I mean, we'll see. But thank God for them that they're in the East, because if they were in the West, their seasons would already be over. But they're not. They're in the East, so they got time.
A great point. That's a great point. I mean, yeah, Philly's been going through a lot of drama, and I'm right there with you. I didn't know why the Pacers were that low, maybe because I have taken a step away from the NBA, but did not know Halliburton was struggling that bad. I mean, goodness. You said they don't have double-digit wins, both sides, both
The
teams.
Pacers do. The Pacers are 10-15. The Sixers are 7-15. So
Dang.
it's been rough for both of them. But I
Yeah,
have
I
some.
knew the Sixers were struggling, but I thought, never mind. Yeah, we'll go into it. I thought there was another team that was struggling a little bit more than they were, but I can agree. Both teams, it's not looking too great. I have like the I had I feel a little bit better as a James Madison fan that Jared McCain is popping off right now.
Yeah, he's awesome. After he single-handedly just shot us out of the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that ruined our Cinderella run, so kind of feeling a little bit better about that now,
Yeah,
but
he's a great player.
great player. I feel like he's gonna be a strong addition to him. And especially when you consider the fact that if they can find a way to move off of Embiid, which is gonna be a talk for probably another day and everything, I think it would be better for them to move off him and see what you can do with Maxey and McCain and maybe just get some younger big guys in there. So I don't know. That's just me. Very surprising though for both these teams, yeah. But like you said, thank God they're in the East because yeah, they'll probably still make a play in and keep things interesting.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Next group. These two teams, I kind of didn't have anywhere else to put them, so they got their own tier. Same spot, different vibes. Spurs and Kings. They're the teams currently, as of today, that would be just outside the West play-in. Spurs are 500, Kings a game under 500. The Spurs are thrilled with how they are. Wemby's been awesome, as expected, and just adding some solid veterans, Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, has really stabilized this team. They've improved significantly from last year, as has Wemby. And Stephon Castle, their fourth pick, has been starting now. He's been awesome. He's a great two-way player. Can't shoot yet, but he's an awesome building block along with Wemby and Devin Vassell. So I think the Spurs are in a great spot for the future. They're not worried about making the playoffs this year. I don't think they will. But the fact that they've been this competitive and this good, they got great vibes. Conversely, the Kings added DeRozan. They thought that would help them get a step up in the West. And right now, they've been worse than they were a year ago. I think they'll be fighting all year for one of those top 10 playing spots. The West is just so brutal, but it's been rough so far. It hasn't been a perfect fit in spite of all the offense they have. They don't have great, they're still a terrible defensive team, and they don't really have much depth. It gets thin fast outside of the starting lineup. Malik Monk, it's Monk, Keon Ellis, the two guards, and it's a lot of Kevin Herter. They don't really have any backup bigs you trust, so they're not deep. They don't play good defense. I think they'll improve and they can turn it around somewhat, but it's been a disappointing start for the Kings so far.
Yeah, and that's not what you want to hear if you're the Kings. You definitely don't want to see yourself put right next to the Spurs, especially when you're
Yeah.
especially in the way that you just mentioned. Like, yeah, the Spurs are on a treadmill uphill climb. They're going to keep climbing for probably the next 2 years until they are probably officially a top seven team on both sides of the conferences. They're probably going to be one of those household names in the next couple of years. So you definitely don't want to be on that different vibe as the Spurs. You kind of want to be, like, yeah, we're getting some ground. And I had the Kings as my dark horse team of the year. I thought DeRozan would help them at least spread the offense a little bit more for De'Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray. It just, like you said, just hasn't really shown that. Malik Monk and all them, they're just really thin. It's a very top heavy roster and everything. Got a lot of similar vibes as a certain team that I'm disappointed in as well. So, yeah, I was about to say, good for the Spurs. 100% agree with you on that. And if you're the Kings, if you're our beam team, you got to be concerned, very concerned. I don't know what move though. That's the question.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
mean,
when
I
it
like.
comes to the NBA, is what move would fix it. I don't know. I was about
Yeah,
to say, would DeRozan might have not been the answer, period.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I liked the move at the time. I don't know. I think just try to get deeper. Maybe they could
mhm,
get it. They could use one of those Nets guys, just like so many other teams.
for
So
real.
we'll see where it goes. All right. So now we get into some to the start to get into the good teams here, and we're gonna go a little. These aren't gonna quite exactly match the standings. I mean, they haven't so far exactly, but here we go. Next group. These two belong together. New coach, same problems. Lakers and the Suns. They're both right now would be in the play-in. They're both about a game or two above 500. They both have awesome superstar talents, legends: LeBron, AD, KD, Devin Booker, and they have new coaches who I think people like better than the old coaches, and JJ Redick and Mike Budenholzer. And they still have the exact same problems. For the Lakers, they don't have a single player that can defend on the perimeter. So wings and top high level wings and guards just absolutely eviscerate them. I mean, they cannot guard. As great as AD is protecting the rim, the rest of this team is terrible at defense. LeBron, he's still a great player, but he's 40. He's not what he once was. He's not much of a defender anymore. I like Connect, their rookie. I like their role players, but not having anyone can guard is just their Achilles heel. They're not going anywhere with this team. And for the Suns, it's the same kinds of problems. They don't really have a big. Nurkic has been bad. Their depth is a little better with them adding Tyus Jones and Ryan Dunn from UVA is at least giving them some defense as a rookie, but it's the lack of a big and depending on 35, 36-year-old Kevin Durant, who's injury prone. He's hurt already, and they've been a disaster when he's been out. Their
Mm.
whole salary cap being taken up by Beal Booker and KD. It's the same problems. They're too thin. They don't have a big. I think their upside is higher than the Lakers because when KD and Booker are both out there, they're just an offensive juggernaut. But um, the lack of durability from KD at this age, this point in his career, as great as he still is, and not having a big is just an Achilles heel that is going to make it tough for them to climb in the West.
Mm. Yeah. Honestly, when the Lakers, both these teams came out guns a-blazing, though, didn't they? They
Yeah,
started
yeah,
the
they both
season off
started
really
great, and
strong.
it's been rough lately.
Yeah. So I kind of that's what I think of when I think of these two teams is I think of their early season start and how these coaches did at first seem like they were addressing those problems, but like you mentioned, KD going down, that exposes the Suns, and I'm pretty sure the AD also went down. So both the guys with the initials of D in their name, they were the ones that exposed their team's weaknesses and flaws, with that being AD and KD. So
AD's been great this year. He's been out there most of the games, but they just besides he's protecting the rim, but they have nobody that can guard. They have
exactly.
no.
Like when he's off the court, I feel like they're one of those teams that when he's off the court, their differentials are just off the charts.
Yeah.
Like it's night and day. So I again, I feel like when you compare I'm going to compare these two to the Spurs, and they're definitely a whole step ahead of them and everything. Um, but the Spurs, man, I'm starting to think about it in light of these two teams. They're getting closer. They are getting closer to the to that next tier, no pun
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah, it's tough future ahead for the Lakers and Suns. We'll see.
Hmm.
I have more faith in the Suns turning around. Okay, next group. These teams are higher in the standings than they are on here. Coaching masterclass, Clippers,
There they are. There we
Hawks,
go.
Heat. So the Clippers, I thought were going to be bad this year. I still
Me
think they're
too.
going to fade a little bit, but shout out to Ty Lue, man. They haven't had Kawhi all year. Harden's been pretty good. He hasn't been shooting the lights out, but their role players have been spectacular. They're deep. They have a bunch of perimeter defenders around Harden. They play great defense. They got shooters. I mean, I watched them beat the Nuggets a week or two ago, and I'm just like, man, they have so many guys that can hit a three. Ty Lue is just hitting all the right buttons. He's been a terrific coach. Likewise, Golden State, they've been really good. I think fifth in the West, but I have them a little lower on their ceiling. They've kind of been coming back down to earth after a hot start. They have a ton of depth, a lot of intriguing young guys, Pazinski and Trace Jackson Davis, Lindsey Waters, Kaminga. Steph is still excellent. Draymond's still a solid defender, team player on offense. But ultimately, they're going to be limited, I think, by their lack of a reliable second score. They've gotten a little bit of an Andrew Wiggins resurgence, which has helped them a lot, even though he's not quite to where he was during the finals run. But Steve Kerr, again, is hitting all the right buttons with these subs. The Warriors are a team I would expect to make a trade, maybe with Miami, which I'll get to in a second. The Jimmy Butler rumors that they're going to try to trade him. Spoelstra's been doing a great job with them. The Heat have kind of found their footing. They're winning. They have a winning record. Hero's been great. This has been his best year so far. Bam's having kind of a down year, but Jimmy's been pretty good when he's out there closing. We'll see if they end up actually trading him because they didn't want to extend him. I could see him to the Warriors makes a lot of sense if he does get traded. Jovic has been out, but the Heat just have a lot of solid role players. Rozier, Jaquez, and Hero's been terrific for them. But again, it's Spo, the best coach in the league, just making it work. But I mostly want to talk in this group about the Atlanta Hawks because we've talked about them so much in this over the course of this show, and they're having a weird team. They
Yeah.
obviously, I mentioned at the beginning, they're in the Final Four for the Cup. And the Hawks, this was a terrific offseason for them because they finally have a team that makes a lot of sense around Trae Young.
Yeah.
So the DeJounte Murray trade is a fleecing because I don't think anyone, including myself, saw it coming. But Dyson Daniels has been incredible for them. He's been maybe the best perimeter defender in the league. He couldn't even get minutes on the Pelicans last year. And now he's still only like 22, 21 years old. And he's been a freaky wing defender, getting steals, blocks, deflections like crazy. And then the number one pick, Reza Shea, I think has been really pretty good for the most part. He's if he was just a better shooter, it'd be awesome. He's a
Mm.
streaky three-point shooter, but he's athletic. He's a great perimeter defender. They're deep. They've gotten a great DeAndre Hunter season, Bogdanovich. And then they have two centers who are pretty similar in Capella and Okongwu. They're not going to wow you, but they get rebounds, they dunk, and they block shots. So having Reza Shea and Dyson Daniels and DeAndre Hunter kind of surrounding Trae Young as perimeter defenders to cover up his defensive weaknesses. Trae's shooting the ball worse than he has, but I think this has been one of his best years. I think he's leading the league in assists. I mean, he's putting up crazy assist numbers. And Jalen Johnson is the big thing, the young forward stretch, kind of weird combo stretch four. He's been their second best player, at times their best player. I mean, he's awesome. And so whether they end up keeping Trae Young long term or not, having a young core of Daniels, Johnson, and Reza Shea, I think that's an awesome trio to build out around. They're deep. They have a ton of switchable defenders. This is a really fun team. I think a good team that's going to be in the playoffs. So I really like how Atlanta has built out this team. Those young three guys are an awesome core to kind of build around. So shout out to the Hawks, who we've roasted a lot for their decision making the last few years. They're in a good spot.
Well, I mean, you can't blame them. They thought that if they go all in on the offensive side, and then I think with the DeJounte Murray thing, but they ended up that just didn't work out. It didn't. It was peanut butter. I know people like peanut butter and butter, but for me, it just sounds disgusting. It's almost like a peanut butter and butter sandwich. So it's just too oily, too greasy. It's just too much going on. But in this case right now, they finally removed the butter and they just added in just simple jelly. And the Hawks, yeah, they've just been making it work. for me, the team that made me comment though, oh, there they are. It's actually the Clippers. That was the team that I was wondering where you were going to put down because as we were rolling through these, I was like, man, well, there's one team that caught my attention, and that's where's he going to put the Clippers? And to see you put them right there with the Warriors is quite interesting. Both of them are a little, coming back to reality a little bit, but and they're in a good spot. And same thing with the Heat, I would say. That's a compliment for the Heat to be in this spot where they're at. So, I mean, despite the fact that if they do trade Jimmy Butler, do they have the courage to actually move on and trust this team with Bam and Hero? I
I
think that's the problem why we don't see anything about a trade yet, is because I don't think they have confidence in themselves to move forward with it. If they go to the Warriors, though, I could definitely see them doing something like a Kaminga dude or
I
Andrew Wiggins type, maybe someone to come down to Miami to help out with that. Someone athletic, obviously, that
Yeah,
Spo
it'd
can
be
run into the
probably
ground.
maybe both,
That's
probably a couple guys, I think, and I think that would make sense for Miami. I can definitely see them doing that.
Thank you. But and yeah, I was about to say, glad to see the Hawks though. They're moving back in a positive direction. Like we mentioned at the beginning of our NBA segment here, they beat the Knicks and then everything at New York. He was rolling the dice on the logo. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take maybe we get to see another masterclass villain session also from Trey Young this playoffs.
Ooh.
So we already got a little glimpse of that this yesterday. So I'm thinking maybe we can get a series out of that. I'm always in for a Trey Young versus New York series. That was very entertaining. Um, and especially with the team that New York has now,
Yeah,
it could be fireworks.
that would be that would be awesome. I would love to see them face in the playoffs. And Quinn Snyder, the Hawks coach, he's the only coach I didn't mention. He's obviously done a great job with this team.
Oh, you just reminded me though, that as long as that playoff series doesn't happen in the Eastern Conference Finals, they'll have a good chance. They'll have a good-
All right, Jalen, here we go. Now to a less fun. Oh, sorry, I forgot about this one. This is solo tier. Can they survive? It's just the Magic. They would have been much higher
They
uh,
had follow.
5 days ago, but then so Paulo goes down a couple weeks ago to a torn oblique after he's looking like the breakout star. Then Franz Wagner is playing like an all-star. He's been dominating. They're still dominating teams without Paulo. They're like third in the East. They're rolling. And then Franz goes down with a torn oblique a couple days ago. So they've
Oh,
lost their two franchise cornerstones, their two best players, their two offensive engines, not for the year, but both for a good chunk of time. So it's just so weird that they got the exact same injury. They're still an awesome defensive team. They're well coached. They have a lot of really good role players. Jalen Suggs,
I was
incredible.
about to say, isn't that the story here? It's Jalen
Yeah,
Suggs,
yeah,
right?
Jalen Suggs been unbelievable. So
Hmm.
I think, and they're also in the East. They've built themselves a nice lead. So I think they can tread water enough to still be in the playoffs by the time they get Paulo and Franz back. If they can, this team, if they're back
Oh,
healthy for the playoffs, I don't think anyone wants any part of this
no.
team because of how great they are defensively. I mean, if it wasn't for the Franz oblique thing a couple days ago, they would have been much higher on this list. But just because their two best players had the weird same freak injury, I just put them in a tier by themselves. But
I
they would have
100%
been much
agree.
higher for one for that.
I 100% agree with this. They would be one of the teams you definitely don't want to see, whether it's a play-in or play-off game. You don't want to see them.
And I think they actually probably, when healthy, match up better with Boston than just about anybody in the East.
Ooh,
So
that'd
we'll
be a
get
take for later.
just because
Yeah.
of the defenders. Yeah. All right. Now this is the group I was talking about. It's a bummer.
Wasting
The teams are all
greatness.
much
Yep.
lower in the standings than they are on here, but I
I
have
already know
faith
who's on this
because of
one.
who they
Yep.
have.
I already know.
Wasting greatness. It's the Bucks and then our teams, the Nuggets and the Wolves. So they're all lower in the standings than this, but I have faith in them turning around. They're all wasting their great franchise cornerstone player for a variety of reasons and in different ways. For Milwaukee, for the Bucks and Nuggets, or the T Wolves and Nuggets, the biggest problem really is cheap ownership. That was the whole reason the Wolves made the cap for Randall trade, is they didn't want to be paying the high second apron luxury tax. And I mean, I understood it, but it has not worked.
No.
The Nuggets, they didn't want to go into the apron to re-sign KCP, and so they now have an incredibly shallow team. So I'll just go through it. Milwaukee has turned it around. I actually probably have the most faith in Milwaukee out of this group, out of how they've played lately, because they are getting a little bit of perimeter defense, at least from Andre Jackson and AJ Green and Torian Prince are giving them some shooting. If they can just get decent wing defense to kind of hide Dame and make Giannis's life easier, then I think they can be dangerous. But Giannis and Jokic, the two best players in the world, they're both having incredible, incredible seasons, and they just don't have the supporting cast to compete for championships. I feel the best again about Milwaukee in terms of their depth, and Dame and Giannis have been playing better together. As of late, their perimeter defense is really their big concern. For Denver, it's the not having any depth. They don't have enough shooting outside of Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic, and sometimes Jamal Murray. They have no 3-point shooting, which just makes no sense.
Oh,
Westbrook's actually been
there we go. I was about to say he was hitting some
Westbrook has
shots,
actually been
man.
great for them. I've been really impressed with Westbrook. I think they've gotten about the best case scenario they could out of him.
They did.
Um, I would love for them to. They don't have much they can trade. They don't have a backup center, despite the fifth and sixth highest played players on the team being Najee and Sarge. They're both terrible bums who are basically unplayable at center. And they need more shooting. And the big issue is Jamal Murray's not been himself. He appears to have come in the season out of shape. He's more worried about watching UFC fights than improving.
Oh,
So that's been a disaster. If he can get back to his old ways, they can absolutely be dangerous. But the lack of depth has killed them. And Minnesota, they're wasting the greatest advantage. Just the biggest for Minnesota, the problem is very simple. It's just spacing. There's just not enough shooting. So the lane is clogged up. Ant can't get to the rim as well as he could. The Randall thing is a weird. Randall's really talented. He's a weird guy to play with. Even Chenzo hasn't been as good off the Nova Knicks. I like Minnesota's depth, but just the lack of spacing has been killer. But again, these teams, as disappointing as they all are, I still have faith because of their top end talent that they'll improve and jump some of these teams beneath them in the standings. But right now, none of them are true contenders.
yeah, I agree. I mean,
Sad state of affairs.
it's so rough, man, to watch the Wolves. I mean, I would argue they're probably one of the most inconsistent teams out there in the NBA because that one night they can beat any team, but then they can also lose to any team like the Blazers, like and the Raptors, like I mentioned earlier. Shoot, your Nuggets lost to the Wizards and the Bucks were losing to just about anybody until the NBA Cup started, which is the only thing I would like to mention to you is Darvin Ham is undefeated in NBA Cup action, Colby.
That's a good point.
Hold up on your Bucks bias here. Hold on. Maybe after the NBA Cup, they're gonna fall right back to reality. But I was about to say for them to be up here, they finally getting it a little bit back together and everything. But dude, I mean the Nuggets and the Wolves, I feel like they're just two of the two teams in the West that have been a little bit of a disappointment. And I'm kind of right there with Jokic. Maybe I kind of think his idea of pay cuts is very interesting, Colby. I don't know. Have
Yeah,
you seen that? I was like, yeah, maybe
that
we
was
should
great.
start doing some small pay cuts when you don't perform good and everything. And I'm like, maybe the Wolves need to do that. Yeah, maybe the Wolves, because then the owner can save some money and we can pay some stars. But yeah, man, it has not. It's just been so rough to watch these Wolves games, and it's like you said, the spacing is rough. It doesn't look, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good when you're the Wolves. So we'll see how it all boils down. We got a lot of time, I believe, as well, but I feel like right now we're definitely a team that's not going to be hosting the first couple of games or any game seven whatsoever.
It's not looking good. We'll see how the season plays out. It's still early. That's the one thing. All right, 7 minutes. I'm gonna power through these last couple tiers.
Gotcha.
Scary deep, Rockets and the Grizzlies. They're
Whoa. Okay,
high
sorry.
up the standings. They have, unlike those teams that I just mentioned, the Bucks and Nuggets, they have just too many role players to even count. They have too many guys. They don't even know who to play. They have so many talented players. Memphis with Ja back has been awesome. Scottie Pippen Jr. has become a real player for them. Jalen Wells that they drafted. Edie's been out, and they have so much depth. The Grizzlies, and same with the Rockets. Şengün's been unbelievable. Jalen Green hasn't even been great, but Amin Thompson and Tari Eason coming off the bench are just two unbelievable defenders who wreck games. Reed Shepard is barely even getting minutes. This team is so deep. I trust Memphis more in a playoff series. Houston, as good as they are, as fun as they've been, they're going to be in the playoffs 100%. They're in the NBA Cup, super talented, but I don't trust them at all in the playoffs just because you have to get your scars. You don't just go on a deep, you just don't win the West your first year in the playoffs. And I don't know who their closer is come playoff time. So I trust Memphis more in the
I can
actual
tell you who it
playoffs.
is.
I think they're more of a contender. But these two teams are both scary deep. They're awesome teams who can certainly make some noise in the West, and they are.
Yo, shout out to the Memphis coach. I forgot his name off the top of my head.
Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah, shout out Taylor Jenkins, man. He made it through what was the roughest patch of his life probably last season.
Yeah, the whole
And
team was
now
hurt.
look at
Yeah.
him. And Colby, you want to know who the closer is going to be for the Rockets come playoff time? It's going to be Fred VanVleet. Watch. It's going to be Fred
I
VanVleet.
guess I don't like that as much.
I don't either. I
Close.
don't either. But I would like to also mention right hand up, completely wrong about both Thompson brothers because we were there covering that NBA draft, remember? And we were like,
Yeah,
or at
they
least I
can't
was like, you were
shoot,
like,
but
yeah,
they
they're
can do
the
everything
overtime
else.
guys. The overtime guys or the OT guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out you guys. I was wrong. All right.
That is definitely the better of the two. He is really good. So Houston got that right.
All right, you can go ahead and keep on
All right.
powering through.
These last three tiers will be quick. The challengers: Dallas, Cleveland, Knicks. Cleveland's been unbelievable. They almost deserve to be higher up, but I kind of put them with this group just because I'll need to see it in the playoffs. Kenny Atkinson, what a job he's done there with pretty much the same team. The fit is better. The vibes are better. They look like an absolute two-way juggernaut. Dallas with Luka and Kyrie has been very good. We've seen what they can do. Obviously, they just won the West last year. And the Knicks, they have some defensive issues, but Cat's been unbelievable for them. The Cat Brunson offensive combo. I really like this Knicks team. These are the challengers. That's the name of the group because they're the three teams that have the best chance of disrupting what feels like an inevitable finals at this point between the top group. And I'll
Mhm.
just go ahead and get to them. We all know who they are. The new Warriors, the Thunder. I mean, look, it's bleak just because are they the new Warriors? They haven't proven in the playoffs yet, but they own everyone's draft picks. They already have an insane amount of young talent and depth. They're the best defensive team in the league. Their defense is just freaky. They're still dominating even without Chet. They have a superstar closer in SGA, a top five guy, and it's just a bummer to see they might just be dominating the West for the next several years. We'll see if they can prove it come playoff time. And at the top of the tiers, rightfully so, probably unbeatable, the Celtics. I mean, we said the same thing a lot of people did about the Nuggets last year. Can the Celtics break the back-to-back streak? We'll see. But man, it's tough to see anyone beating them when they have such good defenders and everyone that plays in their rotation is just lights out from three. They're just going to bomb 43s on your head. Everyone can score. The spacing is incredible. It's just a juggernaut of a team. So it feels like almost inevitable at this point that it's Boston OKC in the finals. But some of these teams you never know could break it up. We'll see. But that is the tiers, Jalen.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the Celtics when they're jacking up what 63s a game. Actually, that was the only time they did lose. But um, I was going to say the only thing I would mention here for the last three sections here is shout out to the Cavs, man. I mean, the
Yeah,
Cavs
they're
were probably
awesome.
the best part of the season, of the beginning, to start the season off, what, starting 10-0, and
Yeah,
they're
they've been
still staying
rolling.
pretty confident, staying rolling. And this is despite losing JB Bickerstaff, who kept them as a relevant playoff team for the last two seasons. And now we're entering an area where what's going to happen again? Once again, we're going to talk about Donovan Mitchell and everything. There's going to come a time where it's going to be like, is it enough? Do they have enough? But I feel like the main story there is Mobley finally coming into his own. I think Mobley's finally actually pulling through with some of those expectations. Um,
Yeah, he's been
that's
great.
that's all I really got to say because I 100% agree with, of course, the Celtics and Thunder, and good for Cat and the Knicks. All right, go ahead. Oh, and screw the Mavs. Go ahead and get to everyone's favorite segment in the 2 minute drill edition. Colby's first time back. Well, I'll let you actually take a minute to catch your breath as we get into some final thoughts, folks.
Go ahead.
And my final thought, apparently, it's going to be one that's popular all around the nation at the time, and that is Bill Belichick hitting the
Yeah,
college football
crazy.
wave. That is going to be
Wild.
his claim to fame is going to be that he's a direct pipeline to the NFL. So he's saying that he's going to have these guys trained up, regimented to get the feel for how the NFL is going. I say that's going to last as long as you get wins. That's all that matters. You got to prove that it works, Belichick. So as you can't, because I have a feeling that it's going to be like they're going to be like 1-3 or something off of their next season, and Belichick's going to be like, well, winning's not really the whole point of this. The whole point of this is to get you ready for the NFL. Well, you still need the wins to prove that. So I was very interested to see how these Belichick Tar Heels are going to go.
Yeah, that's a
Colby,
good one.
1 minute drill. What do you got?
I'll go super quick. Final thought as we wrap up the NFL season soon. I'm just very interested in this upcoming QB draft class, what that's going to look like. I think everyone mostly agrees Shador's going to be the top guy. But after that, it's Cam Ward. I mean, do people like Jalen Milroe, the LSU kid? It's a very weird class, and a lot of teams are really bad at the top of the draft. They need quarterbacks. So I really haven't done much reading into it. I know Shador's the best, but after that, I'll be fascinated to see which of these quarterbacks end up going high because it's not a class like last year.
Hey, and
That's
shout out
my
to those
final
quarterbacks, Shador and Cam Ward. I think they're both playing in their bowl games. So shout out to them, not just pulling the plug early. Like we
thought.
respect that. And if you ask me, that's some pretty good stuff, right, Colby?
Oh yeah.